Hello friends! In one of the previous videos, I spoke about the genetic risk for developing Alzheimer's disease if we inherited the so-called Alzheimer's gene from our parents, and the fact that I chose in a very conscious and deliberate manner to look at this risk from a place of optimism and empowerment, believing really hard in my ability to prevent Alzheimer's disease. I was able to do that with the help of the beautiful science of epigenetics, and today I thought it would be very useful to share with you one of the books that helped me most in this respect. It is called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton is a renowned cell biologist, an author, a speaker, and simply an inspirational human being. Bruce Lipton has this amazing gift of translating rather complicated technical biology terms and concepts into a language which is so accessible and easy to understand by non-biologists like myself. And one of my favorite chapters in this book that I highly recommend is called It's the Environment, Stupid. And it was such an eye-opener to me because I understood that it's not the DNA that determines, that has the decisive role in determining our biology, but the cell's membrane, which is influenced by the environment of the cell. And this was such a change in genetics, because until recently it was believed that the DNA was the brain of the cell, and as Bruce Lipton says, we lived in the era of genetic determinism, and science was dominated by the primacy of the DNA dogma. So what we inherited from our parents was set in stone. If someone inherited a cancer gene, then that person would get cancer because their parents had cancer and passed on the cancer gene. However, the results of the Human Genome Project severely shook this primacy of the DNA dogma. When the Genome Project, the Human Genome Project was launched, scientists expected to find no less than 120,000 genes making up the human genome, because there had to be one gene corresponding and responsible for making each protein in the human body. To their surprise, scientists only found a number of 25,000 genes in the human genome, which is not significantly higher than the number of genes in primitive organisms like the fruit fly, which has 15,000 genes. And we now know that the DNA is just the reproductive organ of the cell, and it is the membrane that plays this central role. It is the membrane that is the brain of the cell. Without the membrane, the cell dies immediately. Without the DNA, the cell is able to survive for 2 months. And apparently, the membrane of the cell is equipped with two types of proteins: receptor proteins and effector proteins. The receptor proteins are picking up signals from the environment, and by environment, we are referring to the bloodstream, to the culture medium which is surrounding the cell. And in this environment, the signals come from neurochemicals which are released by the brain. For example, when we are stressed and anxious, or when we are happy, we release very different types of chemicals, from the hormones, from the nutrients, from the foods that we are eating, from the medicine that we are taking. In this manner, the cell is actually not only picking up these environmental factors, but the other proteins, the effector proteins, are translating the signals into instructions for the cell to behave in a certain way. I hope this was clear enough. It's a very simplified explanation. Bruce Lipton offers a much better one in his book. But for me, it was really important to understand that the cell membrane is picking up signals from the culture medium surrounding the cell and translating those signals into instructions for the cell to behave in a certain way, and that the DNA is not actually doing anything. It's just the reproductive organ and performs the reproductive function of the cell. And coming back to the Alzheimer's gene, to ApoE4, this gene is actually heavily influenced by environmental factors. And I was consulting certain reviews which point to factors like not only nutrition, vitamin D3 is extremely important, but also alcohol consumption, which can increase the risk of activating the ApoE4 gene, and also physical exercise, which on the contrary has the effect of downregulating the ApoE4 gene. For me, this was really life-changing, understanding that we are not mere puppets, victims of our genetic inheritance, that we have the power to influence our biology. This is such an amazing game changer and gives me so much hope, and I was really very excited to share all these things today with you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone.